Recording. Wonderful. The technology is working. It's all about technology today. So it's absolutely good afternoon and welcome to the fabulous Mark Rouvray. Hello, mate. Thinking really good, thank you. I was thinking actually, my introduction to you. I mean, we met at Omni, I think, some years ago. And then you came to my other meeting I used to run. And what I love about you, Mark, okay, you will know what I do with you. When I run my meetings, okay, there are often people who are not used to networking, okay? So I want them to get a good impression at the start of a meeting or the end of a meeting. And I often throw you in at the front, don't I? Because I know I can count on you to give a cracking 60 seconds. You'll say your name, what you do, who you're looking for, and a hook line at the end. So apologies, I always seem to throw you at the end, or I think I'm going to keep Mark to the end. There's been a lot of kind of not great 60 seconds, okay? So I'm going to keep Mark right to the end. So that's why you're always either first or last. So thank you for being so accommodating, Mark.
That's okay. It's funny you look at me like that because when I started doing networking, I hadn't got a clue. So
well, that's the same with all of you. Tell me a bit about your networking journey. When did you start, and what does it mean to you?
Well, I got into networking. It's pretty much since I started in business. Friend of a friend said, "Oh, I'll take you to some networking." I think it was a one-off event, and I remember going to that event, and I thought I had this kind of thing like, "Oh, okay, you paid your 12 quid or whatever it was to go to the event." I thought, "Christ, I've got to make the most of it. I better get out there and sell." And I felt really, really uncomfortable with it, and I was going around, for the first 10, 20 minutes, probably, pushing myself out there. And then suddenly I kind of relaxed and just got into my normal way of doing things. And of course, that is much more how it works. And so quickly realized that it was much more enjoyable just making contacts, getting to know people. And of course, over time, that's how networking properly works. So I didn't adopt the sales pushy approach for too long. And that was my first experience of it, and started to realize that networking in the kind of small business world is something that actually really works. Having come from a corporate world where networking was probably not quite as attractive in terms of the way it used to work, whereas it's much more collaborative in a business world.
Yeah, and your business, obviously, effectively websites. It's easy to understand, and we've all got one. We all should have one. So tell me about so networking, and you've networked in lots of different groups. We've met in lots of different groups. And are you enjoying the Zoco journey so far?
Yeah. No, Zoco's a kind of like flavor for me. It's kept light-hearted by yourself, which is always a good thing, and good pace, good variety of different things that you've got, and and good bunch of people. Somehow you've managed to attract some good people. So
good, yeah.
It's all about the people. If you get a good group of people, you don't mind spending some time with them, and
true.
A good group.
Yeah, and back to your original point about networking. The other thing about, people, you do your 60-second, 20, 30, 40 times, and if someone suddenly says to you, "Oh, that's what you do," okay, you never, ever take, and you don't, I know, you're a proper networker, you would never take it personally if someone suddenly realizes what you do. Because people only half listen a lot of the time, aren't they, Mark?
Yeah, I think you just need to accept that, you don't always get it across, and you need to repeat stuff, and that's part of it, really, that, we learn by the repetition, gradually it sinks into our minds. And I find myself with those that I've met quite a few times online, I'm able to actually come back with the same lines and the same spiel that they've got to other people when I see them, and that's the benefit, really, because if you can then have a load of people out there that are actually able to kind of sell your services in the same way as you can, then that's great. And the repetition helps with that, because you can't expect people to get things first time. And it's the same with any marketing, really. It's all multiple touches, and that's what networking gives. It's just opportunities to add to that. So yeah.
Yeah, back to you. I'm gonna. My mind flips about a bit, so it comes in my mind. One part of your 60 seconds that I love. The quality of a really good 60 seconds is something. And you told a story a number of times about you can have the most amazing billboard in the world, advertising your services. But if that billboard is stuck in the middle of the desert where no one can see it, it's a complete waste of time. And that in some ways sums up SEO, which we'll come to at some point. Okay. So other than, you deliver your 60-second very well, you deliver it, it's punchy, it's clear, and people get it straight away. And so absolutely, I've called you a heavyweight when it comes to networking many an occasion. And I mean, you coming from a place of love, obviously, Mark.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Yeah,
good.
I mean, trying to get the concept across, and sometimes stories is a good way of doing it. That kind of imagery is useful. I think if you can come up with stuff like that, and there's a lot of people that do some good ways of doing that. I think.
And we'll talk about your hook line later on. Well, we might end with that. Who knows? Okay. A little bit disappointed you haven't changed it, but if you have any question, if it ain't break, don't fix it. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think I did think about it, but actually, that was my kind of thinking. You know what? The core of that message is still the same.
Yeah. Okay. So, Mark, so you mentioned corporate. So, talk to me about. So, how long have you been? How long have you been doing? How long have you been doing websites? And what was your corporate journey before then?
So I started with Active in December 2008, which is probably one of the worst times, as we just started going into the big recession. But as I say, there's only ever one time to go and do these things. But I'd spent about 25 years before that in kind of corporate jobs. So British Gas, and then latterly 14 years at British Airways. I started out as something called an operational research analyst. That's what my degree was. So it's like a management science, all the numbers-based stuff, doing analysis using the numbers, helping managers to make various decisions using numbers and mathematical modelling and computer modelling and all sorts of things, decision making. So that's kind of where I honed all my skills. But gradually I went into other roles, particularly project management, program management. I was responsible for looking after the whole baggage operation improvements at Heathrow at one stage, because in the old Heathrow before Terminal 5, unfortunately, they used to lose a lot of bags, as probably many people know, particularly if you transferred through Heathrow, your chances of your bag getting lost somewhere were quite high. Partly because of the massive facilities and processes that used to go on. Much better now, but we used to have a whole suite of projects to try and improve things at that time, and I was the program manager for all of that. So a lot of operational and project management experience at the time. But then latterly I went on to actually go and work in the training, design and development at British Airways. So I was in charge of all their new training development as the program manager there. Quite a big budget, very interesting job, but unfortunately, so I think 9/11 happened during the course of that year. Right. So my budget of about 20+ million went down to about 100,000 within a few weeks. Wow. Because of clearly that was the big area they had to cut back on. Cash was king then, of course, as it probably has been for the airlines in the last year or so. But that was an equivalent disaster for airlines then. So I kind of moved into other areas of HR, and I guess the most relevant to where I am now is I ran the intranet team for all the HR material on British Airways website, internal website, which is about a third of their company website. I also ran the e-learning team at one stage, so producing online learning for people like managers and cabin crew and pilots and stuff like that. Lot of online learning, particularly for crew, because obviously they're away most of the time.
And so when did you make that fateful decision to go it alone and do it yourself?
Yeah, I mean, when you're a kind of manager in a company like that, about every 18 months there's some major change that comes along, and voluntary redundancy is an option. But actually, so I'd kind of resisted several times, but I'd always had a kind of thinking that I wanted to really get into working with small businesses, and I'd spent 25 years with corporate, and I just felt I got a lot of knowledge, experience that I could really share. And the other thing was I kind of missed, when you get to a certain level of senior manager, you miss what I call playing with the toys. Everyone else has all the fun doing all the stuff, and you're just managing things. And I thought I actually missed that, working at the detail level with people and hands-on and being a bit more creative and seeing, product. Because in corporate, you can work on stuff for months and months and never come to any conclusion. Whereas, what I do now is there's definite endpoints and you can get satisfaction from that. So, this time round, come December 2008, in fact, Willie Walsh was in charge then, and he said anyone in his management team, which was about 3,500, could take voluntary redundancy if they wanted. And much to his surprise, a third of them said yes. So a third of them left in December 2008, including me. So it was a major exit from it. Kind of as soon as you make the decision, it's like jumping off a cliff, as many people have done from corporate that you meet in networking. They've done similar. But as soon as you kind of jump off that cliff, you're 100% focused on what comes next. So suddenly it's like, now I'm doing it, I've got to get on with it. So I think I was starting to sell my first website before I actually started. I was in an Italian restaurant and realized they didn't have a website. So I'd already started the discussion halfway through the mains.
Okay, so tell me about active digital marketing. Tell me, what are your key areas of focus in business?
Well, when I started in 2008, it was all about websites, and Active was then called kind of Active Web Design. So it was all focused on the web design side of things. And web design is still the core of what we do, because it's the sales engine for your business. Ultimately, you want that one piece of marketing to be working for you. You want to get everything pointing, whether you're networking, you're out on social media, or doing other paid promotions, or whatever you're doing. Ultimately, you want people to get back to your website, which is where you can sell, because you don't want to be selling in networking. You don't really want to be selling in social media. It's all about making the connections. And so the website has to do the job. And it's more than technology, it's more than design, it's a process. Where trying to take people from that little bit of interest, tick all the boxes that you need to tick for that person, so that they are actually comfortable with picking up the phone, filling out an inquiry, or even buying online. So that's still a mainstay of kind of the business. But we recently rebranded as Active Digital Marketing, because it encompasses so much more of what we actually do, which is around the promotion. How do you get people looking at that website? Is that through getting higher up the Google rankings, so you attract the people who are actually searching for what you do? Is it through social media, where you're getting the connection either with other businesses or through, direct with consumers? Or running paid ads, pay per click or paid advertising through social media. They're all kind of valid methods. Don't suggest they're the right thing for everybody. It's about finding the right thing that's going to drive some traffic. It's investing. Then you're investing in, actually, you've got the website presence, but you've actually got to reach people, engage them, and get them back to that website. And that's what it's all about.
Well, I've got a whole list of questions you sent me, but I'm not going to bother looking at that, because I think it's just chat is going organically, so I'm quite enjoying this. Websites are great. I know how I work. Whenever I buy something, whoever I meet, the first thing you do, obviously, LinkedIn profiles are great. You get a flavour, but then you go on a website. And what you want to see on a website, you want to see kind of pretty colours, nice graphics, testimonials. That's what you really want. What percentage of your clients now have no website? What percentage are existing websites who just need tweaking and overhauling?
So I probably not. I can't think any that we actually deal with. Got none, because effectively you're trying to promote nothing. Right. So all of them would have a website of some sort. There are a few where we've not done the website, and therefore we recommend improvements and things like that. But the starting point for many of our clients is to develop or redevelop their websites to get them up to the right standard. And you're right. The first impressions. When I review sites, one of the key things is what I call first impressions. You say colours and things, but it's like if there's existing branding, if you've seen a business card, you've seen a poster, you've seen something on social media, does it actually match on the website? Because if it doesn't, the first thing you think is, oh, that's not what I was expecting. And it's never good to start with a kind of, you want that seamless, oh yeah, that's exactly, what I was expecting. I'm in the right place. because it just looks professional. So you want that professional look, all the colors matching up, nothing too wonky, out of place, nothing broken.
Spelling mistakes in websites, honestly, Mark. Spelling mistakes in websites, honestly? I mean, how do people even, I mean, I'm sure beat many odds, but how obvious silly spelling mistakes? How does that happen?
Yeah, I mean, I'll pick them up usually in people's copy. I mean, there are proofreaders out there to do proofreading. In fact, when I was at BA, I remember my team, I sent them on a proofreading course because they would look. And, it is a skill, where our minds actually miss these things. But, you've got spell checkers in Word and things like that. They're not actually built into, in general, not actually built into website development tools as such, but there are ways of, picking up on those things. So yeah, that's things. But and there's the next kind of thing, which is the grammatical way of doing things as well, and trying to improve those. So again, I will try and wherever possible to pick up on those things and improve those clients and provide their own copy. But ideally, in the ideal world, we'd all use copywriters and proofreaders and editors and stuff like that. But realistically, for small businesses, they don't always have the budget to do that. So
and you're talking about words, and obviously blogging. I mean, blogging has been keeping your website dynamic and changing. But would you always recommend someone to blog? And a difficult question, I know, but how often should people blog and update their website?
Well, it is ideal for most businesses. There's always a reason to do it. Even trades where we've actually written. Sometimes for trades we'll actually write blog content and do that for them, because blogs work in a number of ways. I mean, you're right. It means a constant update to your website, which is always good for Google. Google likes sites to be changing. That's going to improve your indexing. But blogs also help to add good material, particularly with the kind of professional services. If you're a business coach or something like that, people are looking for proof that you actually know what you're talking about. And so a blog which actually proves interesting, useful, helps to actually say to people, oh yeah, so they said they're really good, but you start to see they're good. And if you've actually helped somebody through something that's on your website, they are far more likely to come back to you, when they've looked at a number of places, if that site has actually helped them already. But it also means you've got loads of material that you can use in social media to promote. Again, put it on your website first, and then put out snippets or intros to it in your social media, because that brings people back to your website, or through your email marketing as well. So having a good regular, and obviously as much as you can. I don't pretend to be doing as much as I should do. So, hands up when none of us are perfect, but as much as you can to try and do something on a regular basis, and plan it in. And if you can afford someone else to do it for you as well and support you in that, then great. Better if you take a planned approach rather than fits and starts.
I mean, there's nothing worse. There's nothing worse. My pet hate. You go on a website, you see they blogged for 4 months running, and then nothing for 2 years.
Yeah, and it's because people have had a go, and it's like, but it's the planned approach that works best. If you sit down and suddenly think, oh, I better do a blog, you're probably not going to be in the best place to do it. I always advise clients to kind of break it into processes whereby, okay, so maybe do some brainstorming on topics. So have all your topics and things that you want, and maybe some research that links to related topics and stuff you've seen on the internet. Do that bit, because then the next time you actually sit down to write something, you've already got a starting point for that.
Yeah.
And often, once you start writing, you'll find you get more into the flow. And I've sat down and maybe done 3 in one session, because you get into the flow of it and write them, and then you can plan them in to release them. If you've only got 3, then you can release them 1 a month for the next 3 months, or something like that.
And do you do kind of landing pages? I mean, do you do very, very simple pared down websites as well?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes we'll do a one page. I'm working on one at the moment for sort of property lettings and new developments, where they'll need to promote it for a while, and it just, it's a single page. It can be quite long with plans and all the transport details of the, you know, the residential area and stuff like that. So a single page kind of works quite well for that, you know, with some inquiries at the bottom. And then that is the thing that they then will spend a lot of time promoting in terms of doing advertising and using it as a landing page for all their promotional materials for it. So so sometimes the landing page is good for that type of thing. Often we might build additional landing pages for clients to do on their website. So an additional page, which is a landing page specifically for some kind of promotion, or maybe for SEO purposes, whereby we're trying to orientate it towards certain keywords and things like that.
Or a lead magnet or something that someone can download.
Yeah, it could be a lead magnet. You know, often people make the mistake of promoting stuff and then sending people back to their homepage. You know, if you're going to do a promotion, make sure you're sending them to the most relevant content on your site. And yeah, a lead magnet, something you've got out there in social media, you want to bring them back to the specific thing that you've been promoting, and not just the homepage, because you'll end up losing a lot of the potential interest that you've got simply because they've gone to the homepage and you then ask them to find what they're looking for.
Well, what I found interesting about so as you well know, I was selling insurance, Vitality Insurance recently, and I did a blog. And so what we did, first of all, you do some SEO check-in to get those 50 words that are most used search, and you make sure you put those 50 words in the blog. Okay. And that kind of thinking hadn't occurred to me at all. You don't necessarily just right at the top of your head, make sure you put in the words that people are using to search for your product. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, I mean, keyword research is sort of one of the things that we will do. We'll do obviously with our SEO clients, and sometimes do for other clients. So you know, it can just be for SEO purposes where you're really trying to do that, but often it's actually about knowing what language that people are using. So even if you're writing your own content, you're writing blogs and things, what are people interested in? What are they searching for? So just, you know, in terminology, it's, if you use certain words that actually are not the ones that resonate with people, then you're not likely to make such a good connection. Whereas if they come to your site and you're using the words that they recognize for what you do, then you know, that's more important to actually do that. And definitely, obviously, from an SEO point of view, you need to know not just what those words are popular, but also what the competition's like. So when we do analysis, we look at not just, you know, is there great search demand, but also what are the top 10, because that's the first page of Google, how strong are they for that keyword? Because if they're really, really strong, for a small business, you're not likely to beat them. In which case you might want to look at some other words where, okay, not such a good search demand, but you've got a reasonable chance of being on page 1 of Google. And that's what we tend to look for and target for the small businesses. Things that we know that, yes, you can get some reasonable search demand, but also you've got a reasonable chance of actually being there and being found.
I think like SEO is, we do talk SEO, and I mean, again, like most good small businesses, the first chat with you is always free, and you want to understand what your client is trying to achieve. Is there, you do keyword research, as I said. Do you have a lot of clients who come to you just for SEO work?
Yeah, definitely. We have certainly have a few of those. As I say, some of them will have their own sites. In some cases, we will advise on changes and particularly landing pages that they need for those sites. You know, there may be some other technical things, in which case we would advise them, and that might go back and liaise with their web developers, because not all web developers are particularly SEO savvy. It may just not be something that they look at. So we'll just advise them on tweaks that they need to make, way some stuff is coded and stuff that just helps. You know, it's not just about getting the words on the page, it's also about how you code them, which indicates to Google what's important and how to index it. So you just help Google in the indexing process. So yeah, quite a few clients are actually, just from that point of view, they're looking for SEO services. I have to say, over time, I've always tended to market more on the web design. The advantage of the web design is people know what a website is, they can see the results of what you do. And so it's easier. Where SEO, it's a bit like being a car mechanic, you know, you really have to trust an SEO person as to what they're doing, because you can't really see it. It's not so visible. And therefore, I tend to work a lot with my existing clients who then trust me, or people who know me through networking, rather than necessarily a kind of cold contact on SEO. It's less likely for me that that's how the work would start. Because unfortunately, there's a lot of people out there that promote SEO, and they're not great, and they will sell anything
Yeah.
to anybody who wants to pay them for whatever they're going to pay.
Yeah,
I turn down probably half the people that come to me for SEO. I'll turn down because I'll say you haven't got a reasonable chance on a small budget of achieving what you want. It's not the right thing for you.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously you can achieve anything with a big enough budget, but just to give you an idea, I mean, the difference between being found locally for something. So I had a client a few years back where we did a lot of double glazing stuff, but in the Twickenham, Richmond area, we'd get them to page one probably. So SEO is probably around 100, 150 quid a month is the kind of thing, which is the sort of price, probably less than you pay for a small ad in a magazine. So that's the way of thinking about it. But the difference is you're paying to actually be found by people are actually looking for you. That's the difference. Sometimes traditional advertising is called pray and spray. You kind of put it out there and you just hope. Whereas with SEO, there are people looking. If you can get to the first page, that they're going to find you. But that 100, 150, if you compare that with what it would have cost you to be number one nationally for double glazing, I happen to know that the people that were doing that at the time, for a company, one of the leading companies, and we all know kind of the two kind of leading companies on double glazing probably, and you're talking about like 16 grand a month. So it's chalk and cheese, and so the idea that you're going to be number one in the UK for something like that is just crazy. For a small business, you're just not going to do it. So you need to kind of cut your cloth to fit. Of course, you don't need to be number one if you're a small business. You're only looking for a certain amount of work in your area.
Exactly.
Many of my clients just want to be number one for what they do in the local area.
Of course.
And if they could be number one there, they'd be happy with that.
I know somebody. Well, did you tell me the story? Somebody who basically worked out that they can run their business from just servicing people in their town, and so they don't want to go anywhere else. So they're happy. So make sure everyone in their town knows about it. That's
my tactic. What I do for my business is exactly what I suggest for others. I'm in Kingston and Wimbledon, my two areas, so I do a lot of SEO promotion for those. I've got a few other areas around here like Surbiton, Rains Park. Worcester Park, so about 7 areas in total that I target. And what I say to clients is, rather than try and go after the big pond or the lake or the sea, if you like London, because some people say, "Oh, I can service the whole of London." I go, I don't know, what is it, 8 million people or something in London, something like that.
Yeah, can you really? You're not really.
It's it's huge, and therefore you're putting yourself in competition with everybody in London. And really, do you want to actually go from southwest London to northeast London to do a boiler repair or something like that? You don't. So target a small area. So that might be, if you're based in Kingston, you might start with Kingston. If Kingston's not big enough for you, then just expand out to a few more areas. So multiple ponds, not a great big one.
Exactly. But the websites themselves, what when it comes to, obviously you're building a website, but I'm talking about the design side. What's your experience? Who do you use when it comes to designing a website?
So sometimes depending on people's budget, we might work with graphic designers or people like that. So I've worked with others where they've gone through graphic designers who have provided almost the complete spec of a site, in which case I'll work with that. But more likely, don't have the budget to do all of that. And what I do is work with them in terms of certainly the structure of the site and the content. We work through all of that. And from the design point of view, obviously we'll pick up on existing branding if they've got it. If they haven't, we might involve then graphic designers around logos and things like that to provide some of that. But more often than not, what I'll do is I'll actually have a conversation about the kind of sites they like, looking at the competition. But it may be other sites and nothing to do with their business, but there's aspects they like about those. And that gives me a flavour of what they like, because there's no one answer that says, oh, okay, for your business, it must be this. So, taking account of the client's preferences and the look and feel that they want. But at the same time, I always have to remind them, the website's actually not for you. It's for all your clients, and we need to make sure it's right for them too. I once had a discussion with a dry cleaners about the fact that I didn't think black was the best colour for a dry cleaners. I was actually persuading her. There was a bit element of compromise in the end. But yeah, so sometimes there are some things that are not quite right at all. But in most cases, you can take that. And because we don't use templates or anything, we can then take ideas from different areas and new ideas from discussions with the clients. And combine those. And usually the process I actually go through is a quite simple one that will develop the initial look and feel of the site with the headers, the footers, 1 or 2 pages, see how it goes with the client. If they like that, fine. If they don't, then we'll tweak it. I mean, because of the process I go with, 95% of the time clients will probably go, yeah, that's looking good, and there'll be minor tweaks. And then once we've kind of done those, then we'll roll out the same look and feel to all the rest of the content. To get the rest of the site done, and then really it's a case of dotting the I's and crossing the T's to get the last bits done. So quite a flexible, collaborative approach with clients, really. But there are clients, then if they've got bigger budgets, then you can actually spec out all the designs with branding agencies or graphic designers, ahead of that, and we'll work in that way as well.
You have the word Kingston above your left shoulder. Explain why Kingston is there.
So that's because Active is actually a franchise business, so it operates across the UK in different areas. So we're branding, just being clear that that's my base, if you like. So in terms of most of my promotion, it tends to be local. I mean, obviously through networking, you can pick up leads anywhere, and that's fine. I can work with someone if I'm introduced to them elsewhere. But a lot of my business is small to medium businesses in the local area. People who want a face, somebody they can talk to. So I do the work. It's me they deal with on a one-to-one basis. It's personal support. You're not dealing with some agency where, down the line, you're going to be the end of a call center or a ticket system, and you don't know who's going to be dealing with what. It's always going to be through me. So you've got the benefits of a local person who is the consultant you're working with, but at the same time I am backed by a head office, so we have technical support team, we have WordPress experts, and we have social media help with that side of things. So it's a good balance, because a lot of web design is actually done through individual small businesses, which is fine until there's a problem with those. So I always say, if I did go under a bus, you're not on your own. I'm backed up by head office, and sadly I am replaceable.
And then I can see them behind you working away, Mark. Absolutely.
Well, I'd love to say that was my actual office of large numbers of supporters, but I won't pretend it is.
Well, I haven't forgotten about your hook line. We're going to end with your hook line in a minute, okay? Mark, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on today. As I said, I don't apologise for sometimes throwing you at the deep end. Not that I look at you, I think Mark's doing good. I'm going to start with him or end with him. So I appreciate it. So Mark, thank you so much for talking with us today. I really, really appreciate it. Okay. So I will let you finish this chat by giving your infamous hook line. So Mark Rouvray, it's over to you, sir.
Right. Thanks, Nick. So as I always say, successful online marketing is a journey. You don't have to make it alone.
Mark Rouvray, thank you very much, sir.
Cheers.